John Miller floated to his station on the bridge of the Defiance. The largest ship humans had ever built still used artificial gravity sparingly. Resources remained precious, even after humans had spread to Mars and beyond. "Status report," said Admiral Susan Hayes as she entered the bridge. Her uniform was perfectly pressed despite the 3 weeks they had been traveling beyond the edge of mapped space. "All systems normal, Admiral," John replied. "Wait." He adjusted his headset and leaned closer to his screen. "I'm picking up something strange. A signal pattern I've never seen before." The bridge grew quiet. After 200 years of space travel, humanity had found plenty of planets but no intelligent life. Until now. "Put it on the main screen," ordered Hayes. The signal appeared as a series of pulses, clearly artificial. No natural phenomenon created patterns this regular. "It's coming from the 4th planet in this system," said John. "And it's directed at us. Someone knows we're here." Admiral Hayes straightened her back. "Send the first contact protocol message on all frequencies." For 10 minutes, nothing happened. The crew barely breathed. Then John's console lit up with activity. "They're responding. The computer is trying to translate." But John stopped mid-sentence as his screen filled with symbols that shifted into English words. "They have translation technology far beyond ours." The message was simple. "Unknown vessel. You have entered territory of the Xorlian hegemony. Maintain position and prepare for inspection." Greg Johnson, the second in command, whispered to Hayes. "Hegemony? That doesn't sound like a friendly neighbor." Hayes nodded slightly. "Prepare the crew. Full dress uniforms, weapons secured but accessible." 3 hours later, a ship appeared near them. It was smooth and elegant, shaped like a crescent moon, and 3 times larger than the Defiance. It glowed with a faint blue light that seemed to bend space around it. A small craft detached from the larger ship and approached the Defiance. John worked frantically at his console. "They're requesting permission to dock at Airlock 3. Their atmosphere is compatible with ours." "Grant permission," said Hayes. "Johnson, you're with me. Miller, keep monitoring all communications." At Airlock 3, Hayes and Johnson waited as the door cycled open. 4 figures stepped through. They were tall and thin with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Each had 6 fingers on their hands, and their eyes were large with vertical pupils. The tallest one stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Zexron of the Xorlian hegemony. You are an undocumented species with unauthorized faster-than-light technology." Hayes introduced herself and offered to show them around the ship. As they walked, the aliens examined everything with cold, calculating eyes. "Your propulsion systems are interesting," said Zexron, staring at the engine room with barely hidden contempt. "Quite primitive, but functional." Johnson clenched his jaw, but remained silent. In the weapons bay, the aliens spent more time. They studied the missile systems and rail guns with greater interest. "You focus heavily on destructive capability," observed Zexron. "Is your species at war?" "We believe in being prepared," Hayes replied carefully. "The universe is full of unknowns." Back on the bridge, Zexron presented Hayes with a data crystal. "Coordinates to Xorlia Prime. The Imperial Council wishes to establish formal relations with your kind. You will present yourselves there in 30 cycles." After the aliens left, Johnson turned to Hayes. "They treated us like children who wandered into the wrong neighborhood." Hayes watched the alien ship disappear into faster-than-light travel. "They're assessing us," she said quietly. "And they're not impressed." John studied the data from their scans of the alien ship. "Their technology is at least a century beyond ours." Hayes looked at the stars on the view screen. Humanity had built its fleet expecting to find an empty galaxy. They had prepared for the worst anyway, building ships that were really weapons platforms with living quarters attached. "Send everything we learned to Earth," she ordered, "and set course for these coordinates. Let's find out what this hegemony really wants from us." As the Defiance changed course, No one on board realized they had just triggered the first chapter in humanity's most dangerous adventure. 3 months passed since the first contact with the Xorlian hegemony. Earth had been buzzing with activity. Scientists studied the alien technology, military leaders held endless meetings, and the public watched the skies with new eyes. President Laura Wilson stood at the window of her office, watching snow fall on the White House lawn. Her reflection showed a woman with tired eyes and new gray streaks in her hair. "Madam President, they're here," said her aide. Wilson nodded and straightened her jacket. Today would decide the future of humanity. In the United Nations chamber in New York, representatives from every nation filled the seats. The glass dome had been specially reinforced, and security teams watched from every corner. Wilson took her place at the main podium as the large doors swung open. 6 Xorlians entered, led by a figure in elaborate golden armor. "High Executor Zeth Kara of the Xorlian hegemony," announced the secretary. The alien leader moved with fluid grace to the speaking platform. His skin shifted colors in the bright lights, from deep blue to purple. "People of Earth," he began, his voice translated through speakers around the room. "The Imperial Council has reviewed your civilization and prepared terms for your integration into our empire." A hologram appeared above the chamber, showing a document with hundreds of pages. "The terms are simple," continued Zeth Kara. "Earth will provide yearly tributes of specified minerals and biological materials. Your military capabilities will be restricted to defense against natural threats only, and 10% of your population will be relocated to develop new colony worlds under Imperial supervision." Gasps filled the room. Zeth Kara continued as if discussing nothing more important than the weather. "These terms are most generous. Many species receive far less favorable conditions." President Wilson approached the podium, her face calm despite her racing heart. "High Executor, with respect, Earth cannot accept these terms. Humanity will not surrender its sovereignty or its people." Zeth Kara's skin darkened to a deep red. "You misunderstand, President Wilson. These are not negotiations. This is your formal notice of integration." Wilson stood taller. "Humanity will not bend to these demands. We have fought our own wars, survived our own apocalypses. We did not reach the stars to become slaves." The chamber erupted in applause. The alien delegation watched in cold silence. "You have 30 Earth days to reconsider," said Zeth Kara. "After that, the Empire will take appropriate action." As the aliens left, Wilson turned to her military advisor. "Prepare the fleet. All of it." At the Pentagon, Lieutenant Alan Burke worked through the night. His small office was filled with screens showing information from the brief access they had gained to the alien network during the diplomatic visit. Burke's hands shook as he compiled his report. The Xorlian Empire spanned thousands of star systems. 17 species had been integrated in the last century alone. Those who had cooperated existed as second-class citizens, those who had resisted. He pulled up images of planets stripped of resources, populations decimated and forced into labor camps. One world had been completely sterilized after its people fought back for 10 years. Burke sent his findings to Admiral Hayes, who was now leading Earth's combined defense fleet. Hayes read the report in her quarters aboard the Defiance. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened a channel to all Earth ships. "This is Admiral Hayes. New intelligence confirms our worst fears about the Xorlian Empire. They will not negotiate in good faith, and they will not leave us in peace." She pulled up the deployment plans they had been preparing since first contact. Humanity has always prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. Now we face the worst. But we have prepared. Move all ships to their defensive positions. Activate the Deep Space Monitoring Network. And begin production of all reserved weapon systems. On Earth, massive factory complexes that had been built in secret decades ago came to life. Inside them were designs for weapons humanity had hoped never to use. In his laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Nancy Clark entered the final authorization code. The screen lit up with a simple message: "Thanatos Protocol activated." The countdown to war had begun. Fleet Commander Velfon stood before the Grand Military Council on Xoria Prime. The circular chamber floated in orbit around the Imperial homeworld, its transparent walls offering a view of the planet's 3 moons. 20 high-ranking military leaders sat at curved desks, watching him with critical eyes. The human situation requires minimal attention, Velfon said, pointing to holographic displays of Earth's fleet. Their ships number fewer than 200. Their weapons are crude. Their shields barely deserve the name. He showed footage from the Defiance, recorded secretly during the first contact visit. As you can see, they rely heavily on physical projectiles and nuclear-based weapons. Their fastest ships are barely able to reach light speed. A single Imperial battle group will be sufficient to subjugate these humans. Science Consul Narration, the only non-military member of the Council, raised her 6-fingered hand. Her skin shimmered with a gentle blue light, indicating concern. "Commander, I must urge caution," she said. "My analysis shows unusual patterns in human technology development." Velfon's skin darkened with annoyance. "Speak plainly, Consul." Narration stood and brought up her own data displays. Most species develop shields before weapons, communication before propulsion. Humans reversed this pattern. They prioritized weapons over shields, kinetics over energy. This suggests a deeply protective, perhaps even paranoid species. She showed images of Earth's history. Their psychological profiles are concerning. They advanced more during their wars than their periods of peace, and their fictional stories often feature humans defeating vastly superior alien forces. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Grand Marshal Kevexar rose from his seat at the head of the council. "Consul, we appreciate your scientific curiosity, but the Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. What threat could one more primitive species possibly pose?" On Earth, in a facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Nancy Clark worked without rest. The Thanatos Protocol had been humanity's best-kept secret for 50 years. It began as a theoretical defense against hostile aliens and evolved into Earth's ultimate contingency plan. Clark looked at the rows of enhanced soldiers in suspended animation. They were volunteers, modified to withstand extreme conditions and radiation. Next to them were the prototype weapons, designed to target specific weaknesses in advanced technologies like those the Xorlians used. "Dr. Clark, final testing is complete," said her assistant. Clark nodded and entered commands on her console. "Begin deployment to all designated ships. Priority to Admiral Hayes on the Defiance." In orbit around Saturn, hidden in the planet's rings, a special fleet waited. These ships looked different from regular Earth vessels. They were darker, sharper, built for one purpose only. Admiral Hayes toured these ships via secure video link from her position near Earth. "Captain Lee, status report." Captain Henry Lee saluted from the bridge of the Shadow Fleet's lead vessel, the Nemesis. "All systems ready, Admiral. Stealth technology functioning perfectly. The Xorlians still have no idea we're here." Hayes nodded. "Good. The Imperial deadline expires tomorrow. Intelligence suggests they'll strike immediately. Be ready." Back on Xoria Prime, Fleet Commander Velfon received his formal orders. 20 Imperial dreadnoughts would jump to the human solar system, positioning themselves near Earth's moon. The display of force would surely cause an immediate surrender. "These humans will make excellent laborers," said his second officer. "Their gravity-heavy world has made them physically stronger than most species." Velfon checked the final battle plans. "The Emperor wants this handled quickly and cleanly. No unnecessary damage to their infrastructure." As the Imperial fleet prepared to depart, Science Consul Narration made one final plea to the Grand Marshal. "Please send more ships. My research indicates these humans are unlike any species we have encountered before." The Grand Marshal dismissed her concerns with a wave. 20 dreadnoughts for a pre-imperial species is already excessive. The humans will surrender within hours of our arrival. On Earth, President Wilson addressed the combined military forces via video. "The Imperial deadline ends at midnight. We do not expect the Xorians to wait even that long. Take your positions, and may God be with us all." The attack came without warning. 20 Imperial dreadnoughts appeared near Earth's moon base. Each ship was the size of a small city, shining with powerful energy fields. They moved in a perfect formation that spoke of centuries of military tradition. "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Hayes ordered from the bridge of the Defiance. Her voice was calm despite the knot in her stomach. On the lead Imperial dreadnought, Fleet Commander Velfon smiled as he saw the small human ships scrambling to form a defensive line. "Send the surrender demand," he ordered. "Give them 1 hour to respond." His communications officer sent the message, but the response came almost immediately. "Sir, the humans are refusing to surrender." Velfon laughed. "As expected, begin the first phase of the attack. Disable their largest vessels." The Imperial ships fired brilliant beams of energy at the human fleet. But something strange happened. The human ships moved in unexpected ways, breaking into smaller groups instead of maintaining a single defensive line. "Sir, their formation makes no sense," said the tactical officer. On the destroyer Nemesis, Captain Frank Peters watched the Imperial weapons fire. "Just as we expected," he told his crew. "Their targeting systems assume we'll follow standard space combat doctrine. They don't know we have no doctrine for fighting aliens." He pressed a button on his command chair. "All ships, execute maneuver Delta 6. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. It looked like chaos to Imperial eyes, but each movement was carefully planned based on centuries of human warfare. "Fire rail guns and nuclear missiles," ordered Peters. "Target their weapons emplacements first." The Imperial dreadnoughts had never faced kinetic weapons before. Their shields were designed to stop energy attacks, not solid projectiles moving at near-light speeds. The rail gun rounds tore through their defenses and punched holes in their hulls. Then came the missiles, carrying warheads enhanced with the technology developed under the Thanatos Protocol. When they exploded, they created small tears in space itself that shredded anything nearby. On the Imperial command ship, alarms blared. "We've lost dreadnoughts 3 and 7, reported the tactical officer, his skin pale with shock. "Impossible," Velfon shouted. "Concentrate all fire on their flagship." The remaining Imperial ships focused their attacks on the Defiance, but as they did, human ships appeared from hiding places throughout the solar system. Some had been concealed in the asteroid belt. Others emerged from the shadow of planets. A whole fleet rose from the dark side of the moon. They set a trap, Velfon realized too late. Captain Peters led a group of 5 destroyers in an attack run against the Imperial flagship. "They fight like they've never faced a real enemy," he told his crew as they dodged energy beams. "We fight like we've never known peace." The human ships used Earth's gravity to slingshot themselves at impossible angles. They fired from positions the Imperial ships couldn't target effectively. When the Imperial vessels adjusted their shields to block rail gun rounds, the humans switched to energy weapons. When the Imperials protected against energy attacks, the humans returned to kinetics. Admiral Hayes watched from the Defiance as the battle unfolded. "They expected us to fight according to their rules," she said to Greg Johnson. "But humanity never learned the rules." After just 3 hours, the battle was over. 17 Imperial dreadnoughts had been destroyed. The remaining 3 were so badly damaged, they could barely limp away into faster-than-light travel. In the aftermath, Captain Peters surveyed the wreckage floating around Earth. "They'll be back," he said to his executive officer. "And they'll bring more ships next time." "Let them come," she replied. "We'll be ready." On the Imperial homeworld of Storia Prime, news of the defeat reached the Emperor's palace. Guards reported that for the first time in 500 years, Emperor Vakoreth showed an emotion that looked very much like fear. "Tell me everything about these humans," he commanded his advisors. Everything. Emperor Vakoreth the Eternal sat on his crystal throne in the Imperial Palace on Storia Prime. His skin had turned a dull gray, a sign of deep distress among his kind. For 800 years, he had ruled the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Now, for the first time, he felt fear. "Play the battle footage again," he ordered. The holographic display showed human ships moving in ways that defied Imperial combat logic. They attacked in small groups, changed direction unpredictably, and used weapons that ignored standard defenses. "How is this possible?" he asked his advisors. Science Consul Narration stepped forward. "As I warned the Military Council, humans developed along different lines than other species. They evolved as prey animals that became predators. Their history is filled with constant warfare against themselves. They never learned to trust." The Emperor's skin darkened. "And now they are attacking my empire." Reports came in from across 3 sectors of Imperial space. Human ships had appeared at mining outposts, research stations, and small colonies. They weren't just defending Earth. They were striking back. Colonel Samantha Reeves led a team of 20 soldiers through the corridors of an Imperial communications hub on the moon of Craxus II. They moved silently in their advanced stealth suits, another product of the Thanatos Protocol. "Remember, minimal casualties," she told her team over the secure channel. "We need their systems intact." The Imperial guards never saw them coming. Within 15 minutes, Reeves and her team had control of the entire facility. The aliens were locked in their quarters, unharmed. Engineer Paul Martinez connected his equipment to the main Imperial computer. His fingers flew over the interface as he broke through security layers. "I'm in," he said after 20 minutes, downloading their entire military network. Reeves looked over his shoulder at the flood of information. "Can you read it?" Martinez nodded. "Their computer language is actually simpler than ours. Less security, more efficiency." They never expected anyone to hack their systems. Back on Earth, Intelligence Officer Diane Foster sorted through the stolen data. Her eyes widened as she accessed the Imperial military plans. "Admiral Hayes," she called over the secure line. "The Emperor has ordered his grand fleet mobilized. 10,000 ships. They're coming for us, all of them." Hayes looked at the star map showing the approaching Imperial Armada. "This is what we prepared for," she said quietly. "Tell the President it's time for the final phase of the Thanatos Protocol." President Wilson called an emergency meeting of world leaders. For 6 hours, they debated in a secure underground facility. When they emerged, Wilson looked older but resolute. "The vote is unanimous," she told Admiral Hayes. "You have authorization to proceed with all necessary force." Hayes nodded gravely. "I'll give the order immediately." On the flagship Defiance, Hayes opened a secure channel to all Earth forces. "This is Admiral Hayes to all commanders. Imperial forces are mobilizing their entire fleet against Earth. We expected this. We planned for this." She entered her command codes into the console. "Effective immediately. Initiate the Thanatos Protocol. Final phase. I repeat, initiate the Thanatos Protocol. Final phase. Authorization code. Thermopylae." Throughout the solar system, hidden installations came to life. On Mars, massive hangar doors opened in the side of Olympus Mons, revealing ships unlike any seen before. In the clouds of Jupiter, stealth platforms activated weapon systems that could tear apart space itself. Beneath Europa's ice, missile silos prepared to launch warheads capable of destroying entire moons. The Emperor watched as his grand fleet assembled above Soria Prime. 10,000 ships, the largest military force ever gathered in the galaxy's history. Surely no species, especially not a newcomer like humanity, could stand against such might. "The humans have forced my hand," he told his commanders. "I will not just defeat them. I will make them an example that will be remembered for 10,000 years." On Earth, humanity prepared for the greatest battle in its history, not just for survival, but for the right to remain free in a galaxy that had forgotten what freedom meant. The Imperial Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system in a massive display of power. 10,000 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, arranged in perfect formation. At the center was the Emperor's personal flagship, a vessel twice the size of any other, covered in golden armor that glowed against the darkness of space. Fleet Commander Velfon had been demoted after his failure, but kept alive to advise the new commander. "We should approach with caution," he warned. "The humans may have more tricks." Grand Admiral Zev Torek laughed. "Your fear is noted, but unnecessary. No force in the galaxy can stand against the full might of the Empire." The fleet moved forward, spreading out to surround the entire solar system. Their plan was simple: cut off all escape routes, then advance on Earth from all sides. As they passed Neptune, the first signs of trouble appeared. Long-range sensors detected odd energy readings from several moons and asteroids. "Investigate those readings," ordered Zev Torek. Before scout ships could reach the locations, massive explosions lit up the darkness. Hidden human bases on Neptune's moons launched waves of missiles toward the Imperial fleet. At the same time, ships emerged from hiding places throughout the outer solar system. "It's a trap," shouted Velfon. Human vessels appeared everywhere, rising from gas giant clouds, detaching from asteroids where they had been disguised as mining equipment, and decloaking from empty space. These weren't the same ships from the first battle. These were different, larger, darker, built for one purpose only. Captain Kevin Bryant commanded the carrier Retribution, leading the first wave of attack ships. "All pilots, launch now," he ordered. "Remember your training. Their ships are bigger, but ours are faster." Hundreds of small, agile fighters streamed from the Retribution and other carriers, heading straight for the Imperial fleet. Unlike typical fighter craft, these were unmanned, controlled by artificial intelligence systems designed to learn and adapt during battle. The Empire built a military to control populations, Bryant told his crew as they watched the fighters engage. "We built ours to end threats." The Imperial fleet reacted slowly, confused by attacks coming from all directions. Their tight formation, perfect for intimidation, made them easy targets. The human fighters targeted the same weak points discovered in the first battle, ignoring the strongest parts of Imperial shields. On his flagship, the Emperor watched in horror as hundreds of his ships exploded. "How many vessels do the humans have?" he demanded. His advisors had no answer. Human ships kept appearing from hidden bases throughout the system. Some were massive dreadnoughts that rivaled Imperial vessels in size. Others were tiny, fast-moving bombers that slipped through defensive fire to deliver devastating payloads. Fleet Commander Velfon finally understood. They knew we were coming. They've been preparing for this moment for years, perhaps decades. This isn't just their military. This is their entire industrial output concentrated into weapons of war. Science Consul Narration, brought along to advise the Emperor, nodded slowly. "Humans don't fight to conquer. They fight to survive. And they believe we threaten their survival." The Imperial ships tried to regroup, forming defensive clusters. But the humans had studied Imperial tactics and knew exactly how to counter them. When Imperial ships raised shields against kinetic weapons, human forces switched to energy attacks. When they adapted to energy weapons, humans deployed exotic matter bombs that created small black holes. By the 6th hour of battle, 3,000 Imperial ships had been destroyed. The rest were scattered across the solar system, fighting for their lives. Captain Bryant received new orders from Admiral Hayes. Target their command ships. Cut off their leadership. The Retribution and 5 other carriers moved toward the Emperor's flagship, escorted by a swarm of fighters and destroyers. The Imperial vessel was powerful, but alone it couldn't stop the coordinated human attack. On the Imperial homeworld, panic spread as news of the battle reached the population. The unthinkable was happening. The Eternal Empire was losing. And the humans were just getting started. The Battle of Sol marked the beginning of the Empire's collapse. With their grand fleet in ruins, other species saw their chance for freedom. Rebellion sparked across 100 worlds as news spread that humans had done the impossible. Admiral Hayes directed humanity's campaign from the Bridge of the Defiance. Unlike the Emperor, she did not remain safely distant from battle. Her ship led the charge on Imperial strongholds, showing other species that humans fought alongside their allies. "We're not fighting ships," she explained to the United Nations Security Council during a secure transmission. "We're fighting an idea. The idea that might makes right across the stars. To win, we must replace that idea with something better." President Wilson nodded in agreement. "Freedom, self-determination, the right of all species to choose their own path." On the mining world of Telos IV, Lieutenant Carol Martinez led a small force of human ships to liberate the enslaved Draconian population. The Draconians were reptilian beings with armored skin who had been forced to work in mines for centuries, digging rare minerals for Imperial ships. "We expected more resistance," Martine said as her team secured the Imperial governor's compound. Only a small garrison had defended the planet, and they had surrendered quickly when faced with human weapons. An elderly Draconian, his scales dull from years underground, approached her. "They never expected to be attacked here. The Empire has ruled for so long that they forgot what it means to be challenged." The Draconian elder watched as human medics treated injured miners. "You came not as conquerors but as liberators," he said softly. "In all our history, no species has ever done this for another." Admiral Hayes received Martinez's report with satisfaction. "Add the Draconians to our growing list of allies. Their knowledge of Imperial mining operations will be valuable." The war expanded beyond military targets. Human intelligence officers identified Imperial supply lines, communication networks, and command structures. Precision strikes crippled these systems without harming civilian populations. "The Emperor believes we want revenge," Hayes told her officers. "He doesn't understand that we only want security. Once his ability to threaten Earth is gone, we can end this." On the Imperial capital world of Storia Prime, Emperor Vakorith faced growing unrest. 6 months of continuous defeats had shattered the myth of Imperial invincibility. His own military council questioned his leadership. "The humans must be stopped," Vakorith shouted, his skin flashing dangerous colors. "They have somehow corrupted 17 of our subject worlds into joining their rebellion." Science Consul Narati, who had survived the Battle of Sol, spoke carefully. "Your Eternal Majesty, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans have repeatedly spared civilian targets. They may be open to peace talks." "Peace." The Emperor's voice was cold. "I would rather see the Empire burn than bow to primitive animals." That night, as Imperial citizens slept in their elegant towers, the Emperor's own military council moved against him. Led by officers who had seen humanity's power firsthand, they entered the Imperial palace with drawn weapons. "The Eternal Empire need not end," they told Vakorith. "But your rule must, if our species is to survive." The struggle was brief. By morning, the Imperial Palace, which had stood for 10,000 years, burned in a dramatic display meant to signal change to the population. Admiral Hayes received the news during a strategy meeting on the Defiance. "The Emperor has been overthrown," she announced to her officers. "A provisional government is requesting ceasefire talks." Greg Johnson, who had been with Hayes since first contact, looked skeptical. "Can we trust them?" Hayes studied the message carefully. "The new leader of the provisional government is Science Consul Narate. She was the only one who warned them not to underestimate us. Yes, I think we can work with her." The war wasn't over. Loyal Imperial forces still controlled hundreds of worlds. But for the first time, Hayes allowed herself to feel something close to hope. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them the hardest part is done. Now comes the true challenge: building peace." 5 years after first contact, representatives from 37 formerly subjugated species gathered on Earth's moon. The newly constructed Galactic Assembly Dome gleamed under the stars, built where humans had once taken their first steps beyond their world. Admiral Susan Hayes, now retired, watched from the observation deck as delegates arrived. Her hair had turned completely gray, but her eyes remained sharp. The burden of leading humanity through its first interstellar war had aged her, though she never regretted her role. "Strange to think it all started with a single alien ship," said Greg Johnson, standing beside her. He had been her right hand through the conflict, and now served as Earth's defense minister. Hayes nodded. "Even stranger to think we spent centuries preparing for a threat that almost destroyed us anyway." Inside the main chamber, President Laura Wilson took her place at the central podium. Age had not diminished her presence. If anything, the successful defense of Earth and the liberation of countless alien species had given her a quiet authority that commanded respect without demanding it. "Today, we gather not as conquerors or conquered," Wilson began, "but as equals under the stars." The delegates listened as translation devices rendered her words in 37 different languages. Some species breathed water, others methane. Some stood on 6 legs, others floated on gas bladders. All had suffered under imperial rule, and all now looked to build something new. "The document before us is simple," Wilson continued. "The Mutual Defense and Sovereignty Accord guarantees that no species will ever again threaten another with extinction. It establishes free trade, cultural exchange, and mutual aid while respecting the unique development of each civilization." From his seat as Earth's ambassador, John Miller watched with a sense of wonder. He had been the first human to detect the alien signal that led to first contact. Now he helped shape humanity's place among the stars. "We came to the stars prepared for the worst," he told the assembled delegates when it was his turn to speak. "Now we must learn to hope for the best." Science Consul Nerati, leading the provisional Xorlian government, signed the accord first. Her people had begun the difficult process of dismantling their empire and establishing peaceful relations with former subject worlds. The empire believed that the galaxy's greatest power was control. She observed to Ambassador Miller after the ceremony, "You showed us it was adaptation." In the former imperial archives, now open to researchers from all species, Dr. Nancy Clark discovered something that chilled her. Humanity wasn't the first species to challenge the empire. Records showed at least 5 other civilizations had risen to spacefaring status and developed military capabilities that worried imperial leaders. All had been destroyed in their early stages of development, their worlds sterilized, their populations exterminated. The empire had learned to recognize potential threats early and eliminate them without mercy. "We were different only because we were more paranoid than they were," Clark told Hayes when she shared her findings. "Our fleet was ready before they knew we existed." Hayes looked out at the stars from the observatory window. "Then the Thanatos Protocol worked exactly as intended. It kept us alive long enough to change the rules." Beyond Jupiter, ships from a dozen worlds conducted joint exercises, developing common defense protocols. The human fleet, once built for destruction, now stood as the foundation of a new interstellar order, one based not on domination, but on the principle that had guided humanity's own turbulent history. That freedom, however dangerous, was worth defending. President Wilson toured the training facilities where humans taught other species their combat techniques while learning alien technologies in return. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Empire had never found us?" an aide asked her. Wilson watched as a human instructor helped a 6-armed alien operate a fighter simulator. "We would have explored the stars in peace until we found them. And then," she smiled slightly, "I think the result would have been the same. Humanity has always been ready to fight for its place in the universe." As the sun set on the Galactic Assembly's first day, the representatives of 37 free worlds raised their voices, or tentacles, or light patterns, in agreement. The age of empire had ended. The age of cooperation had begun, and humanity, once alone in the cosmos, had found its place among the stars.